The Zenith Jupiter-37A MC 135mm f3.5 is one of, if not the best Soviet-made 135mm lens, apart of course from the Tayir 11A. And I've got one of the best variants available, the MC version, which stands for multicoated, and it has a lovely patina for a price of just $30 US. Who even cares anymore? The lens used in this review is a rare variant of the Jupiter-37A. This one is the MC Jupiter-37A 3.5 135mm, manufactured between 1986 and 1989. The Jupiter-37A came to be much like all Soviet lenses of the era, being a Carl Zeiss Jena DDR sonar 135mm f3.5 MC clone. The history of this lens is, say, interesting, as is the case for many Soviet-era lenses. This one is a re-engineered copy of the Jena DDR sonar, but keep in mind, a re-engineered. While it takes a lot of ideas from the Carl Zeiss lenses, the Soviets had to run the math again and make everything fit to suit their own needs in both optics and cost of manufacturing. That's how they made everything in those times. Everything had to be durable, and especially everything has to be cheap. As I said before, the MC stands for multi-coated, and it's easy to spot one of these lenses as being the MC variant, as both the front and back lenses, but especially the front ones, have different colors than the standard lenses. My lens has a front lens element that shines as purple, blue and green. In terms of pricing, it's all over the place. I just got lucky with my lens as I've only spent $30 on it, but I've seen these Jupiter 135mm lenses go for as much as $100. Of course, that is based on the condition of the lens and if it has all the original accessories. Mine came with only hopes and dreams. No original paperwork from the factory, no original case, no included metal hood, and no original caps either. Even so, the $30 price tag is low for this lens, and even in this condition. From a design perspective, at first glance, this lens is not really that good looking. It's not bad looking either, it's just there. Just a cylinder with a bunch of lenses inside. It's not as unique as the design of the Helios lenses or the Tayir 11A, just to name a few. However, the multi-coating on the lens does create a unique look and many people will take notice to that, especially the green and purple color combination. The build quality of the Jupiter-37A is very good. This lens is made entirely out of solid metal. There's no plastic to be seen here. However, the lens is not that heavy either, with a weight of around 410 grams. So not that much to put a strain on your camera body, but not light enough to feel flimsy. Still talking about the build quality, even though my lens has seen a few, or better said, a lot of years of hard usage, around 90% of the writings and symbols that are found on the casing and top part are still readable and in good condition. This is thanks to the fact that back then, painting the numbers for the aperture and focus distancing was not good enough, and many of them are actually etched into the metal surface, hence why they lasted the test of time. There is some dirt inside the lens, especially on the aperture blades, but nothing that will affect the performance and functionality of the lens. The focus ring is smooth, and the same can be said for the aperture ring. The Jupiter-37A has a big advantage over many other lenses, both old and modern. This little lens uses 12 aperture blades and a declicked aperture ring. And why is this important? Because with a high number of aperture blades, the bokeh is very smooth. Other features of this Jupiter include a preset system for the aperture. What this does is simple. It prevents the aperture ring from going past a certain aperture value that you set. To do this, you have to set the aperture to f22 and then push on the ring, and while pushing it, you rotate it to your desired aperture value. Then let it go and you will hear a distinct clicking noise. That's the preset system locking into your aperture value. To reset this system and have the whole aperture range available again, you just need to push on the aperture ring again, and while it's pushed, you rotate it back to f22 and let it snap into place again. And that's it. Speaking of the aperture, this lens has a maximum aperture of f3.5 and a minimum aperture of f22, and a declicked aperture ring, which is great for video usage. However, that's not a good deal for photographers, especially if you are used with clicked aperture rings. It's not a deal breaker, but some people might not like it. The Jupiter-37A has a minimum focus distance of 1.2 meters and a focusing range of 270 degrees. This means that the lens is not going to score that well as a macro lens. Not only that, but 270 degrees of rotation on the focus ring would require some time to get used to, especially since a lot of lenses have only 180 degrees of rotation on the focus ring. The lens can be found in multiple variants, as I've said before. However, what you need to keep in mind is that these lenses also came in multiple camera mounts. However, the one you want is the M42 screw mount, which is the one I have here. One thing to keep in mind about this lens is that the mount is swappable. In fact, this lens can be converted to a modern camera mount with ease, as the entire mount of the lens is attached to the lens body by just 3 screws on the side. And how is the Jupiter-37A to use, or better said, how is my MC Jupiter-37A? Well, honestly, this is a little lens, and even though it's 400 grams heavy, it doesn't feel like it. In fact, often it's easy to forget the body has a lens on it. This lens is also quite small and can easily pass for something else, even a 85mm lens. In terms of video, this lens is great. However, just like our lenses from this era, it does not have any image stabilization. So you can either rely on your camera for the image stabilization or use a tripod or a gimbal. Without those, the image will be as shaky as your hands can be steady. But even so, you can see that the image quality is great, sharp and with good colors even on a winter cloudy day. And with the camera and lens on a fluid tripod head, the Jupiter-37A performs much better. The sun is out of the clouds, so the color came back, and you can see that this lens does not have the typical vintage look. This image quality is almost modern-like. In terms of sharpness, this lens is sharp even at its maximum aperture setting of f3.5. However, it behaves as many other lenses, and the image gets sharper if the lens is stopped down. The bokeh is maintained throughout the entire f-stop range, and its quality is very good, smooth with good color and blur. When we talk about photos and daily usage, it's different but not quite. What I mean by that is that this lens will perform differently based on your location and the time of day and weather. The photo quality is excellent, however the colors can look washed out based on the weather, but nothing that a bit of color correcting can fix. In good weather, with some sun out, the colors become vivid and the Jupiter-37A comes into its own. The MC Jupiter-37A is a fantastic lens. It's sharp even at f3.5 and has a great bokeh with smooth shapes across the entire f-stop range. The lens feels light and it's quite small. It should perform great for portraits and street photography. In terms of video quality, it's the same deal as the photo quality. It's great, sharp and smooth bokeh. However, with no image stabilization systems, you will have to rely on a tripod or a gimbal if you want smooth video footage with this lens. The MC Jupiter-37A is great, and if you can find one under $50 US, get it. It won't disappoint. However, pay attention to the condition of the glass inside the lenses. Don't just buy one because it's cheap, because oftentimes if something's too cheap, it's there for a reason. If you like this review, then you might consider subscribing for more, and if you want to support me in a direct way, then in the description below you will find the links for both the Patreon and the Substar pages of this channel.